Good afternoon. So my name is Chris Riedesel. I am an arts associate with the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. With me is Roxanne Steinberg. She is one of our COLA Fellowship recipients for 2020. We are talking about her COLA Fellowship project. The culminating event for our artists is usually an exhibition at the LA Municipal Art Gallery or a performance at Grand Performances, but because of COVID-19, it's shut everything down, so we've moved our events online. And after some thought and some conversation, Roxanne has opted to do live streaming for her performance, and I wanted to have Roxanne speak a little bit about that. So please let us know how you ended up in the direction of doing a live streaming performance.
It's been such a funny process. Thank you, Chris, for doing, and thank you to the DCA and for accommodating me with wanting to do it live stream. We started off checking out the space at Cal Performances. Is that what it goes by now?
Well, there was a space that was used for recording our other COLA fellows. It was called Civic Center Studios.
Mm-hmm. Right, no, but originally it was supposed to be done outdoors at Grand Performances.
Yes, the original performance was supposed to be at Grand Performances at what they call the spiral staircase, or they may have another name for it, but it's usually called the spiral staircase.
Anyway, so we checked out the space, and it was a week before safer at home policies were set in place. And so we saw the space and we're thinking how we could do it, and then went through this little process of thinking, well, can we do it there? And eventually it became clear that it wasn't going to happen there.
It became apparent that the performance wasn't going to be happening at the spiral staircase. And then we had that there were difficulties in staging it there at the very least. And then we had COVID-19 hit.
I wanted to thank you guys so much for working with me. The idea of doing something in a fixed space, like it's just so counter, even already, I think I asked you early on, I said, well, do you think I can do it as an installation that people kind of come into my space and sit with me and have tea with me or go through my things with me? And it was like, that didn't seem possible. It was a very formal proscenium stage, and it didn't really seem right. And then to constrict it even further and think about it being in a fixed studio space, it really didn't feel right. And I am so thankful that you all understood that, and the importance, first of all, of it being a live event for me is the energy in sharing what I'm doing live and the risk of doing that with my audience. So this question now of what is live, so these things that go on air and are live when they go on air, but then you can watch them later, like the live breaking news, breaking news live, and then like for hours you're seeing the same news over and over again, and it's live. But there is something to the fact that it did happen live, that they went on without any intermediary, and it happened. And so there's a risk, but there's also that sharing, that energy, I people who pray, and I pray to whatever sometimes, it's that idea that something is happening in the now, and I'm sharing that live wire, that immediacy with an audience, and it's super important to me. And it's very different than doing a piece that's constructed for a space, which is also a beautiful thing, but that's never what I had imagined this to be. And so because of these crazy circumstances, I ended up with this, I think the optimal way for this piece to happen, which is that people will be able to enter my own space, really my home, in a live way, and of course it'll be constructed, but it's entering my world in my time, and that's puts me at the most risk. And it's also what I feel I should share.
I also think that you talk about risk and the sharing, but it's also very intimate that way. Yeah. And you are inviting people in, and I think that makes it a much more potent experience. Yeah. So what are your influences on this new piece that you're creating? And if you have a title for it, please let us know.
Of course, the influences always change. Again, that's something that I've really been so thankful to the BCA for recognizing. You know, between the time that you envision a piece and what you want to create, and then when you start working on it, and then you spend a year, and then things change, and in this case, this huge crisis. You know, there's been so many different influences, so many changes. When it started out, I was carpooling with my father to work, and he would tell me, oh, this happened here, and over there was that club, and this happened there. And I just had these different visions of the city, and also, you know, driving a lot in the car. I somehow, when I imagine myself, I don't imagine myself in the car. I imagine myself kind of floating down the streets like you do in a dream. And so this kind of dreamlike feeling connected to Los Angeles was part of what was inspiring a dance for me. Something about streets and the map and nostalgia. And so that's what I had started working on. And then I ended up in Vermont last spring. And my father grew up in Rochester, New York, and came here when he was 18. So I ended up kind of in the East Coast, and looking for shreds of the past that somehow I thought would connect to a childhood that my father had. So I spent a lot of time at antique stores and started collecting doilies, which actually I had been collecting them for a long time before, but I find them so curious. They're this strange thing of beauty, and yet from the word doily, which already kind of turns people off, just even the sound of it, or the idea of, like, you know, a greasy head on the back of a chair, or, you know, a doily sitting there with a old coffee on it. And yet everybody's grandmother seems to have made these beautiful things from around the world. And so I was finding lots of them, and they always make me a little sad, because as somebody who can't really throw anything away, which I hear is a problem that a lot of artists have. It's like, it's always going to be for a piece. So I started collecting them and feeling sad because somebody had given away their grandmother's cherished time. And they seem to be kind of a symbol of time, of something that you've spent a long time on. And it doesn't really fit into this world today, the way we are living, where everything's so fast and everything comes in bites, and all of a sudden there's these things that somebody has put their love and time into. And there was a teacher at Bennington whose mother was a mathematician, and she said when she's like this brilliant mathematician, and when she retired, this was in Japan, they found years later, after she passed, doilies under the beds and in every drawer. So there's like, every culture seems to have doilies. So I started to collect them, and then thinking, well, this doesn't seem to relate to my father's past. I don't have any doilies from my grandmother. So thinking about how I'm going to work with these things and put them together. I often think about my work as threads and gathering threads. And so anyhow, I was trying to kind of merge this thing of maps and traveling through space, and then also this detailed thing of time and nostalgia. And so as COVID set in, and I was looking for the research that I had done from my father's past and kind of gathering these pieces, I found myself in this archiving process. And my physical body relating to space was constantly moving reaching up high, bending down low, filing things, putting it back. Oh, where was that piece? Getting it out again. You know, like just this process of archiving. And I've found that it's not unusual. Like I keep going to people's blogs or websites and it's like, oh, great. You know, well, at least, you know, thanks to COVID, I've been able to go through my boxes. I finally have a chance to read my old New Yorkers or whatever it is. But so I'm finding these certain behaviors that are, a lot of us are being affected, or, you know, how COVID is affecting a lot of us. And one of the first things that people asked me to do, they said, oh, will you make masks? Because I sew a lot. I make costumes and I sew things. And so will you make me a mask? And so the first, I looked at some patterns, and the first picture I saw was this mask, this kind of gingham mask on top of a doily. Like, no, this just seems too, you know, too perfect in a way. So it's those three things. I think the process of archiving, the process of pulling these threads from time and wanting people to see, wanting people to see the past. I don't know why I have this urge, this desire to want people to see, oh, well, that's where my father grew up, or that's, you know, that's how Horlicks malted milk used to wrap their packages, or, you know, like these things that I came across that don't really mean anything to many people. They throw them away, but for me, I'm like, oh, people should see that. People should know that it used to be like that. And so it's these threads of nostalgia, and that's archiving that has kind of made that clear to me, how these pieces of pulling the past seem to be so important to me. So.
Wow. So I like the phrase threads of nostalgia. So I'm wondering, with all of these different things that are informing you, what do you have a tentative title for your piece, or?
Yeah, so I came across the word open work, and it just seemed to fit just perfectly. Open work refers to work in many different materials, but it could be in ceramics, it could be in metal. It's often referred to, it's often used in referring to crochet. And it's work where the primary characteristic is that you can see through it. You can use the space behind the item. And so it's, you know, kind of like lace work, or, you know, metal work where it's been cut, or ceramic work where it's been cut. And again, it refers to crochet. So it was, oh, that's what a doily is. And crochet work is often referred to as open work. And it just seemed to fit so perfectly as I'm opening up these layers in my house when I do my performance, so that you'll be able to see through different layers. I'm imagining almost like veils of different information, including the house itself. So it's a beautiful word, and it has many different rings to it.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing this work. And we'd spoken earlier, and so our viewers know the tentative time and date for this work will be for people to view live, because you only have this one opportunity to see it, will be Sunday, June 21st, and tentatively at 9 a.m. We'll have the information posted on this website, so people will be able to log in and see open work. Thank you for joining us, Roxanne. We do look forward to seeing your new work. Is there anything that you'd like to close out with before we sign off?
Yeah, just I think you had one more question about working in this period. I don't know. I you know, may have answered it, but what are the things just about being in this house here, you know, that we're here in this, we live 4 people in our house, my 2 sons and Aguri, my partner, and we're very fortunate. We have a studio where we can work, and this room where I'm doing this interview is called a washitsu. You can't see, but there's a tatami floor, and it's kind of like a formal greeting room. And I've been able to do things that I care about with other people here in this space when we invite people in, maybe for tea. And so so the house has been realized in this way through this challenge of having to be here all the time. And when I see this performance starting, I see it progressing through this washitsu, this kind of entry greeting space, and allowing people to come through layers of my work. And I had been setting up the kind of the living room space as a studio, and I said, listen, you know, we don't really live like, we don't invite people over to entertain in that kind of way. We're artists and we live in the space in this way. And so everybody watch out, I'm going to be setting this up as my studio. And this was before COVID set in. And so then, as it turned out, we're all here. And so it became a workroom, the living room. And my son started sewing. And part of my idea had been maybe to have my son's sewing during my piece as part of the soundtrack. So all of a sudden the living room was the sewing room, and it was no longer my own studio working space. So this piece has now given me the chance to really realize this space as I had always kind of hoped it would be, but never really had to make it that. So now the living room is becoming the set, and the sewing is still happening in the living room. And I imagine the people who join me on the 21st will see the space in a kind of layered way as my piece is, as the work is, and these different layers, whether it's the soundtrack, which involves my father's voice, and work with Paul Chavez, who has been collaborating with me for about 30 years, and you know, is working with the different sounds that I've given him from recordings over the past, you know, year and a half. All those layers will come into play in this space, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. Thank you for this time, and we look forward to the 21st.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, thank you, everybody.